Manchester United 1, Brighton 3, and to be honest, I am just kind of tired of it. A team that for years now, tactically hasn't been good enough, but also individually, is just absolutely miles off the level that we want to be at. Today we are, of course, going to break down what went wrong for Manchester United, specifically from a defensive point of view. Before we get into that, if you guys could subscribe, it would be greatly appreciated to at least take a positive from today. It would be nice to see the channel growing, and then once we've done that, we'll get into the video. So as I said in the intro there, the main focus today is going to be Manchester United defensively. Now I know that post-game, Ruben Amorim has been speaking about United on the ball, not displaying enough confidence and things like that. And actually he's been putting some of the blame on the players, which, whilst the players are poor, I'm not a massive fan of it, to be honest. But Ruben Amorim's talking about United lacking confidence on the ball. My bigger issue in this game was once again Manchester United defensively simply not being good enough. And it's frustrating because in moments we look like a side that can press high and can win the ball back. In the first 30 minutes of the game in particular, there were moments where we could win the ball high. Brighton would split into the back four. Two centre-backs go either side of the goalkeeper. Full-backs are going to drop either side as well. And then the double pivot are going to move into this position here. Now what United were looking to do, particularly from goal kicks, not just when the goalkeeper had the ball, but goal kicks, is Xerxes going to move up between the two centre-backs, and basically once the ball goes one way, he's then going to work hard, and he worked very hard in the first half, to be fair to him. We're then going to see the two inside forwards, Ahmad and Bruno, in a sort of hybrid position between full-back and centre-back, a system that we've seen before, and then the two midfielders are going to go man for man in this position here. Now, the first problem I've got here is that it does mean that straight away United are defending with 5, even on goal kicks, which is just too many for my liking. But actually, in these moments, there were situations where it worked quite well, because, like I said, Xerxes worked phenomenally hard. So as the ball was here, Xerxes would apply pressure initially, and then once the ball went one way, he'd work so hard to get over here. And that means for Ahmad, it's now less of a hybrid role, and he can actually just drop onto the fullback. And like I said, there were moments in the first half where he did win the ball. United did win the ball. This is me, by the way, trying to focus on a positive early on. It's going to go downhill, though, after this bit. Anyway, United in a 2-3 shape here. You can see what we're trying to do. You can see the two inside forwards in these sort of hybrid positions where they're kind of picking up two players at a time, which is difficult to do, to be fair. And then you've got the two central midfielders going man for man. Now, the important player here is Joshua Xerxes, because he's going to put a real shift in, which allows United to move in the way that we press. We can see, in this instance, the centre-backs connecting as well. This is De Ligt all the way to the press. Not bad at all. As the ball is worked wide, eventually Manchester United put a tackle in. This is pretty decent pressing work. It's coming from a lot of hard work from the players. It's not an optimal system because we are lacking players in this moment, but here it works well. Again, here it works pretty well. Xerxes applies pressure to the goalkeeper. The ball goes wide. Xerxes keeps running and is going to negatively press, which means you're still pressing high, but you're actually running backwards whilst you're doing it. Xerxes did it really well in the first half. We can see the two midfielders going man for man in the middle again. Again, this is good. This is positive play from United. And again, as the ball goes in, the defenders are aggressive enough to put pressure on the ball, and Manchester United win the ball back. So there, the pressing work looks good. So why am I in such a bad mood about this all? Well, because it's just inconsistent. Because yes, we can press in these moments, but it asks a lot of questions of a lot of different players. Xerxes, for a start, has a lot of work to do, and he's going to fatigue fairly quick. The inside forwards are always given this decision between a couple of players of who to pick up, which it can work if you play with intensity, which United did in spells, but there were also moments where it dropped off as well. But the big thing for me was the issue with the centre-backs round the back. The decisions they've got to make on when they're jumping into midfield to follow players, but they're scared of leaving space behind them. Should they be dropping off? There were moments like we've just seen where we pressed well, they joined the press, and we were able to win the ball back, and it's good. But there were also issues with the structure as well. And particularly, more than anything, rather than the high press, which everyone's been talking about, I would say it was actually more in the high block we had more of a problem, where United, again, are in a sort of 5-2-3. And it is a 5-2-3 at this moment, not a 3-4-3. Because the wing-backs, they are playing as a back five. They're not up here. So it's sort of this 5-2-3 formation. And the issue I've got, and we literally highlighted this in the stream today before the match started, which is kind of ironic. I was saying that the big issue United have is because the centre-backs are tasked with following the forward in this area here, it means that no matter what, our wing-back cannot press high. No matter what. Because if this centre-back goes high, onto João Pedro here, and this wing-back goes high onto Matoma, for example, it leaves all the space here. Now, on this occasion, that wasn't actually the main problem. The main problem was that the wing-back was pinned, like we've said about. But just that the ability to defend that space was really, really poor. Really poor. And when the player on the ball's got a bit of time, because United are blocking rather than pressing in this moment, time on the ball plus space to run into equals nightmare for the defence. And it means that Brighton can play the ball over the top into this position. And of course, we saw Matoma for the first goal moving into this area. Now, I need to be really critical of Mazraoui as well. He done horrendously on this goal. But you can see what's going on here. United aren't pressing. It's more in the block. This isn't a high press moment. And as we just drop off a little bit, you can see the problem we've got in here. It's 3 versus 2. Brighton have got 3 players because they've got their couple of midfielders, but they've also got the forwards dropping off into these areas as well. And it asks big questions of our centre-backs. And when our centre-backs are being dragged into these areas here, it's a problem because De Ligt's going really high, which isn't inherently wrong, but the space that it leaves in behind is a problem. There is so much space there. Just one ball over the top. One ball over the top takes out the whole Manchester United team. Now again, Mazraoui, it's shameful. It's amateur. Really amateur. Because of other errors in the game, this isn't going to be picked up on. Mazraoui was horrendous. Really, he had a really bad game and done really badly here. Really bad. Defensive basics just not done. But also, this wasn't the only time this happened. This is a little bit later in the game, about 20 minutes later. You can see again, De Ligt is trying to connect with his midfield. He's trying to join in those areas. But the timings of movement, first of all, are a little bit difficult. And if he does come squeeze higher, you can see even Yoro as well, by the way, is squeezed right out into the midfield here, although that's the wrong colour marker. But again, you can see him in midfield. It leaves so much space in behind. And again, Mazraoui at the moment isn't a player capable of doing this. And it means that United really do get pinned back quite easily. In this game in particular, I actually thought on the ball we had some moments where we were okay, although Amorim was critical. But off the ball, we're so easy to manipulate at the moment. We're so easy to pull into different positions. I spoke about after the Southampton game how we didn't play well in that game. This isn't reactionary because we lost. I've highlighted these errors for about a month now, 6 weeks, if not longer. And the other problem is we get scarred a little bit. So that ball's gone in behind on a couple of occasions. So what we start to do as the game goes on is we hesitate to jump. Suddenly Pedro's got the ball here. Previously, De Ligt was high and tight, winning the ball back. But because we've been done for pace a couple of times, you just think, can I go and get him or am I leaving too much space in behind? It leaves you sort of humming and hawing. And the problem is the United midfield is now just completely overwhelmed because we've got 2 central midfielders in here. The 3 are still quite high, which means there is so much space outside of the United midfield in these areas here. And this is where United quickly, and almost alarmingly quickly, become quite passive at the moment. And I say this a lot, when you're passive but not compact, again, it's a problem because players have got time on the ball, but they've also got passes that they can try and pick out further up the pitch. And this was highlighted in the last 2 goals. Now, the last 2 goals, of course, wrong clip, last 2 goals are bad individual mistakes. Right, there are some really bad mistakes in these goals, but also we've got to look at how easy it was for Brighton to get into the position to actually initiate the mistake, right? Yes, Onana makes errors on the goals, but if we were better defensively higher up the pitch, we never would have been put into that situation. So the first problem is here. You can see it's all a little bit disconnected. The midfielders have squeezed high, and United are now 3 versus 2 in midfield because Danny Welbeck's dropping deeper. Now, the reason it's a 3v2 is because the centre-backs are a little bit slow. Lenny Yoro doesn't really want to go pick him up because actually it's not his man. It's kind of Maguire's man. But again, the centre-backs are being pulled apart. The second the Brighton players start moving laterally across the front line onto different centre-backs, it makes it really difficult for us to judge whose man is who. So when Welbeck appears in a position like this, and he's actually the central striker, Lenny Yoro eventually goes out there. But was he really the one who was meant to be going, or should that have been Maguire? This is the confusion that we see. Now, of course, a lot of that is because we've had such little time on the training ground. Ruben Amorim hasn't been able to get the instructions, train the players to understand the decisions to make in these moments. But it does cause a problem. And one of the problems is that the 2 midfielders have to start doing more work, right? Because the centre-backs aren't in there, or certainly aren't in there quick enough. So the central midfielders have to make up the ground. They have to put some good work in. But it makes it difficult. Suddenly these balls are going across the pitch here, and one player being beaten ruins us. Now, in moments, we've got a player like Ugarte, right? He can win this ball. But if he doesn't, we're in a whole lot of trouble, and the opposition player can very easily carry the ball forward. And now we've got this back five, which is passive. There's only 3 players on that last line they're defending against, plus the player on the ball, of course. But this is where it's passive, and it's very easy to move the ball onto us. If we go back a couple of clips here, it all started here, really, or here, and just very quickly, pretty much unchallenged, largely. In about 8 seconds, Brighton move into this position here, and eventually the ball goes wide. For me, as this ball curls towards the back post, Onana should do better. I think he's got to come and claim it. I think he's got to be more aggressive, but it's a bit too easy for Brighton. This one here as well. Now, this one's a little bit different because I think we've got to consider game state here. This shape here clearly is not Ruben Amorim's plan, right? This is the players late on in the game being tired, wanting a goal, trying to take things into their own hands a little bit at the moment. You start to make poor decisions when you're fatigued. So this one for me isn't as much on Amorim. I think the players make some poor decisions, but you can still see kind of the basic principles of the shape and some of the issues with it. So we've got 5 players up high here who get no pressure on the ball at all. It's passive. And look at the space that opens up outside of our midfield. Now, ideally, we should have a fullback or a wing back being aggressive, particularly on the near side, getting into that position. We should have a centre back being aggressive, making up the extra man. It's all a little bit disconnected. There's spaces open, and again, United are pinned back so easily, so easily. Brighton moved the ball forward, and I mean, Onana just, we're gonna have to take a look at him at some point, Onana, because there's too many points which he literally throws away. Like, he might as well turn around on goal kicks and kick the ball into his net. It's that bad, some of these mistakes. They're high profile mistakes. They're really poor. And they're quite frequent. And it's just a real problem for United. You can probably tell my energy is slightly sapped today. Because it's just really frustrating. Ruben Amorim has come out after the game and said it's maybe the worst United squad in history, which he's probably not wrong about. I don't know that it's a positive thing to say to the media. You know, it's not a nice thing for the players to hear. So it's an interesting one. I think he needs to help them more. I agree that the players are poor. I think they're really poor. I think their technical quality is very inconsistent. I think their mentality is questionable. Not in terms of work rate. I don't think that was the issue today. But in terms of game intelligence, in terms of confidence, things like that, I think they're mentally struggling. Physically, we know we're a poor squad. We make mistakes. But I do think Amorim needs to do more. It's too passive. It's too easy for teams to come onto us. And again, this isn't reactionary. I've said this from the start under Ruben Amorim. After literally his first game, I made a comment on it. So yeah, something needs to change. Is it going to? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Normally, I like to try and bring you guys a positive. I will try once again to do that. This guy can play. Ahmad's really good. Really good at football. He is him. Give him the ball in the final third and he's going to make stuff happen. Outside of that, we're lacking a little bit. And I think we'll cover the possession another day because it's all a bit stale at the moment. For today, we're going to wrap the video up there because I want to watch the game back a third time just to really properly assess before we make any outrageous claims. But it was a bad day for United. The first half, I think we looked competitive and on the ball, we were a genuine threat. But defensively, there is an underlying problem here at United, which we need to try and fix. Ruben Amorim needs to try and fix. The players, the coaches, whoever. Something needs to change. But yeah, we're going to stop the video there because it's all a little bit negative, which I don't want to bang on about too long because I think enough other people will do that. So thank you guys very much for watching. If you could leave a like while you're here, it would be amazing. And also subscribe with notifications on. It helps the channel so much. We are so close to 50k. So if you could, it would be greatly appreciated. But apart from that, I'll see you guys in the next one.